Hello and welcome to Cooking with the Wooden Spoon. Today I think is our first bread baking together, which is funny because I bake bread all the time. We are making, to start with, a good first bread recipe is my honey whole wheat bread. It is healthy and it is really, really quite delicious. I try to make this bread pretty often, especially in the winter. I don't know why in the summer I don't make bread as much. Probably because I'm buying it at the farmers markets. But I really love this recipe. And today we are going to use a new featured honey, and we'll get to that soon. But to start this recipe, we are going to make it in the KitchenAid mixer. If you do not have a KitchenAid mixer, do not let that keep you from making this bread. It is super easy as long as you have the tenacity to knead it and to mix it together. You really don't need a KitchenAid mixer. I just find it easier that way. Some people actually do bread in a food processor as well. I've never done that before, but I've watched many videos where people do that. Today we're going to do the KitchenAid mixer though. We're starting with 3 cups of whole wheat flour. So this is just inexpensive Walmart brand whole wheat flour. So we're doing 3 cups of that. Often you see me be pretty precise, but with this I'm not as precise because I know the ending. It's kind of like reading a book and being okay with what's going on because you know the ending. So I know at the end we are going to add white flour a little at a time. So it doesn't matter as much how much of the wheat flour is super precise. So in my mixer, I am mixing 3 cups of whole wheat flour, and I am doing 3 teaspoons of yeast and 1 tablespoon of salt. I have tried to do less than a tablespoon of salt because, as you know, I do really watch my salt intake. For this, there are 2 loaves, and each loaf is cut into many pieces. So it really is okay to do the tablespoon of salt here because it ends up stretching out so much that you don't get that much salt per slice. So I learned on that one. We are also putting in 4 tablespoons of Crisco. So since this is a baked recipe, I can't wing it. And I typically don't like cooking unless I can wing it. But this is somehow different. I really enjoy making this bread. I do try to keep the portions pretty well perfect, other than the wheat flour. Uh, and I wanted to say that this was my first cookbook whenever I left my mom and dad's house. This has been a cookbook that I have used so much. Betty Crocker. I don't know what I would do without this cookbook, honestly. The recipes in here are tried and true and perfect. So if you don't have the Betty Crocker cookbook, I do recommend you trying to find it. I love mine. Okay, so today I wanted to tell you about this really awesome honey. So this is Argyle Honey Farm, and it is in Argyle, Texas. Usually, you know, I use all local ingredients, but you also know that I am a sentimental chef. This honey was harvested from my son Seth's very sweet fiance, Sarah, from her dad and stepmom. They have the bees, they do all of the bee things and harvest their own honey. I can't even imagine the bravery that it takes, but they love it, love it, love it. So Robin sent me a picture of them for trick or treating this year. Robin is Sarah's amazing stepmom, and they were a bee and a beekeeper. How super cute is that? So we are going to use 1/3 of a cup of this amazing honey. It's hard to sacrifice this honey um, because I am sentimental, but I can't just have it sit in the cupboard because it's just too good to not use. We are putting 1/3 of a cup of honey in here, and then we're going to let the mixer stir this just a little bit before we add our water. So we'll just stir for a second. Okay, we have pretty well mixed the first several ingredients, and I'm adding 1 or 2¼ cup of lukewarm water. So you don't need this to be super hot or super cool. I tend to go for around 98 to 100 degrees, and that seems to work out pretty well. I mix this up pretty well. I wanted you to see what the consistency should look like as we go, as we mix this. So I thought this would be a good camera angle. This bread is one of the more forgiving breads that I've made, and it's probably why it's my go-to. The amount of white flour that I add is pretty much contingent upon the weather, how much moisture there is in the air while I'm making the bread. So we're going to start with 1½ cups and see. I have a ½ cup measuring cup, and then we'll see as we go how far that gets us. One of the reasons that this mixer makes it so much easier is because my hands, they don't have to do any of the work. So it makes it worth it. I've had this mixer since 1995. So it is very well built and pretty solid. Pretty happy with it. I do turn the mixer off every time I add flour because I learned the hard way on that. It's just a good idea unless you want flour everywhere in your kitchen. I think we're going to let this work for a minute, and I will show you what it looks like when it's almost ready. We're getting pretty close. You can tell that because the dough pulls everything off of the side of the bowl and works it into the dough. So one other way you can tell is if you touch the dough. I can almost tell you now that it's not quite ready. If it's sticky, it's not quite ready. This needs a little bit more. So far we have added about 3¼ cups of white flour. So we're going to add a little bit more just to get some of the sticky texture off of it. One really awesome thing about this recipe, it makes two loaves, and you can freeze one of the loaves and work through the other loaf. And when you pull the other one out of the freezer, it honestly tastes as good as the day that you've made it. You need to make sure that it's completely cool before you put it into a bag or before you put it into the freezer. But it's very convenient how well this freezes. I tend to try to share one loaf with Lizbeth and enjoy one loaf for myself. But there have been times that I have frozen. This is almost ready. I don't know. I think it's just so close. Close. I'm gonna do just a little bit more. The reason that you want it to be not quite sticky is because I am going to knead this on the counter for several minutes. And if you're kneading it and there isn't enough flour in it, you will just be a sticky mess. I'd say, oh, perfect. Okay, this is awesome. We are going to take this out of the bowl and put it on the counter so we can knead it. So it's perfect. I will not put any flour on the counter because I have a marble countertop. So at my old house, I had the coolest 60s style countertop. Don't even know what the material was. Matt could probably tell you. But I did need to add flour to the counter when I was doing the kneading process when I made it there. But here, I'm okay. The more flour that you add, the more dense the bread is. And I really love this bread to be light and fluffy. It is delicious. This is the bread that gave me confidence to make other breads. So this is kind of a special loaf. Plus, this is a bread that really helps with weight loss, actually. There is a step after you put the bread into bread pans to cook. There is a step in the recipe that calls for melting butter and brushing it on the top of the bread. And that is delicious. But I'm trying to keep it as healthy as I can. So I skip that step, but it still tastes amazing. So we're just going to knead this for, the recipe says to knead it for um, 10 minutes, but part of the kneading process was done in the mixer. So I don't have to knead it for that long. Usually, a little peek into my world, usually when I'm kneading my bread, I play song quiz on the little magical device that I won't say her name. So I found that one session of song quiz, I can get the bread exactly where it needs to be. And when I play song quiz, I play two players and I'm both players. So I win every single time. It's just the craziest thing. But anyway, just fun. Kneading the bread is, I think, I think kneading the bread is probably the thing that kept me from making bread for so long. But then I started thinking about it like I was stirring soup. I have no problem standing at the stove, stirring soup, and that is just magical for me. but kneading bread, not so magical. But as soon as I kind of changed the way that I looked at it, it made it easier. That's how life goes, I think. A lot of it is your perspective on whatever circumstance you're in. So, okay, after we get this kneaded, we are going to put it into an oiled container or an oiled bowl. I don't oil it too much, again, just because I try to keep this as healthy as possible. So we will oil it, and then we're going to watch for it to double. Again, it really depends on the weather, how quickly your dough will rise, and we'll kind of see what happens. But typically, I let it rise for close to an hour. So it'll be good. So I will show you what this looks like in a bowl here in a second. And I might play one round of sound quiz or song quiz. We'll see. Here's our dough looking wonderful. I just take a kitchen towel and I wet it with warm water and put it on the bowl. Easy peasy. I'm going to put this somewhere warm and cozy, and it will rise for an hour. Perfect. So what we do next is we divide this in half, and we will put half in each of these loaf pans. So since I'm not doing this for the market, I'm not going to weigh out half. I'll be able to eyeball this. So what I do is I do a rectangle, kind of push it down, make sure you work it just a little bit, and then, oops, then I fold the rectangle in half this way.
Looks great.
Thanks. How's it going, Matthew?
Great.
So then I fold this into thirds. So at this point, you're going to want to make sure that you pinch the ends in pretty well so that it maintains its shape pretty well. I do that on both ends, and I also do that on the bottom. So then we put it in the lovely bread pans. I'm trying to stretch it so that it is the same circumference throughout the whole thing. Perfect. So then I'm going to put this in, and then after both of these go in the baking dishes, we're going to let this rise for another 35 minutes. So about that size. And then again, fold into thirds, pinch. I'm also going to cover it. So I'll use the same cloth here and put it over by the stove, because the stove is warm from other things I was doing today. So, perfect. It really doesn't have to be beautiful or wonderful. It's going to taste amazing either way. So, just kind of put both of these in here. We're going to take them over to the stove, cover them, and then let them, I should look at the directions. Cover again for 35 to 50 minutes. Today, since it's warm in here, I'm going to guess that I'm closer to the 35, but that's the range. Our dough is perfect. As this cooks, it's going to rise, so I don't want to let it rise too much in the pan. I've made that mistake before. And then as it cooks, if it rises too much in the pan now, it will become way too big to fit in my toaster. So I like to have bread that will fit in my toaster. So this has been 35 minutes rising, and we are going to go ahead and pop it in a 375-degree oven for 40 minutes. And then we'll try it together. Our loaf is perfect. They smell wonderful. I know they're going to taste wonderful. So, do you see what I mean about how it will rise when it is in the oven? I really do like when bread fits my toaster. This one isn't as pretty as this one. I didn't um, pinch the dough quite as well as I should have, but it's not going to affect the taste. So it doesn't really matter. Matt would never complain about anything, and I will like it no matter what. So we're just going to cut a slice off of here, and then you can see how beautiful it looks. The light and fluffiness that I wanted was achieved. I'm going to be having some of Merle's Midwest Market apple butter. I know that I've talked to you about this stuff before. Everything from Merle's Midwest Market is just delightful. Um, I know that they are going to be at the craft show slash market in Pine Bluff or Cross Plains, Wisconsin on November 15th. So if you're watching this before then, I would go and check out Peggy and her amazing products. I will be there. So let's give it a try. Matt likes to have just butter on his, but man, everything that Peggy makes is awesome. So I'll be having that. Hmm. There's nothing like fresh baked bread. Mm. This is soft and the taste is wonderful. The honey that I put in really does affect the taste. I don't really know how that happens because there's really not that much honey in, but this is so good with the Argyle, Texas honey. Mm, this is delicious. It wasn't that hard. I hope that you aren't like me and let bread scare you. Um, it's really not that difficult, but having fresh bread, walking in and smelling this bread is wonderful. But having this fresh bread, especially in the winter, is just delightful. Mm, so good.